T-Mac, Ashton Jeanty, and James Pearce. We're talking 2025 NFL Draft prospects today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Joe, happy Wednesday. Happy NFL season opener eve to you here today on Locked On NFL Scouting.
Thank you, Kyle Crabbs. You gave me a look there while I was talking. Was something weird? Was you good?
No, I'm just staying engaged while trying to keep up with headlines as they're rolling in. And, want to just don't leave you on the island and force you to do the first minute and a half by yourself. So I had to at least show you that I was present with you.
Thank you.
As you were getting the table set for today's show.
Thank you. Speaking of tables and setting them, how about we get into the first player?
NFL draft.
Look at us, Kyle Crabbs. 2 weeks in a row. We did an entire show talking prospects.
Well, we're back in the game. We're back in the game. So we have to be. I'm doing a spoiler alert. Tomorrow, I have a top 50 coming out on 30-13.
Oh, you think these three players going to be on there?
Yes.
Boy, they better be, Kyle Crabbs.
Spoiler alert.
Really question your ability to evaluate talent if these guys didn't have a spot.
Will not have to wait very long at all for all three of these guys. These three guys are ballers. And I think I said it last week, Joe, this is a really good class.
Yeah.
And you're charged with putting together a top 50, and you're looking at names that are in the 30s that are edge rushers and offensive linemen, that it's like, there's been guys that are the equivalent of this that have gone 10 picks earlier. Now, not everybody's going to come out. We know that's a part of the process. But one guy I feel pretty good is probably going to come out as Tetairoa McMillan, T-Mac, wide receiver.
You went for it.
I got it right. Then I got it.
Tetairoa.
Yeah.
Tetairoa. I was ready. I knew the pronunciation police would be lined up outside.
Well, with a player like this, everybody deserves to have their name pronounced correctly.
Yeah.
But when you play football like this guy, you darn well better make a good impression when you're introducing him on the podcast.
So we'll call him T-Mac from this point forward.
Yes, we will.
We've done it. We did our civic duty here. Tetairoa, T-Mac, McMillan, 6'4", 210 pounds, wide receiver out of Arizona. Hit 21.8 miles an hour on the gun. 5-star recruit, the highest recruit in the history of Arizona, multi-sport athlete, football, basketball, volleyball. Had a big year last season. 90 catches, 1,396 yards, 10 touchdowns, 90 catches on 130 targets. That's a crazy good reception percentage when you especially figure like the style of receiver that he is. Doesn't drop any passes, right? 2.2% drop rate.
His drop rate's unbelievable.
He's got those suction cups for hands, man.
Are you reading my profile that I have for my big?
I don't. I've not seen it.
I use the phrase suction cup hands on my write-up for 30.
Wow. Well, maybe we just saw it very similarly, Mr. Kyle Crabbs.
Oh, my goodness. So you think about a player like this. There's a vertical component. There's a middle of the field component. He works really well middle of the field in the intermediate areas of the field. But a lot of his down the field success is outside the numbers, working the red line, stacking guys vertically. And you see a very high volume of those plays. He's not the most fleet of foot because of his stature, but he has the power and the physicality to run through a lot of press coverage on the outside, and he stacks guys with a great deal of success. And oh, by the way, he's got a very good contested catch profile as well. So, he may not have the best 10-yard split. I think his open field speed's really good. But for those concerns that you have about, he's a big receiver, is he going to get off press on the outside? Can he stack you vertically and threaten you in all phases? Yes. I think he definitively has shown across his 2+ seasons now as a starter and an impact player that he has the ability to threaten you in all the ways that you need to be that X receiver that's isolated with your routes. And no, we can put him over there. We can run the numbers game for our route concepts on the other side. But if we want to run basics and digs, if we want to run comebacks on the outside, if we want to run go balls on the outside, and we're going to learn it against coverage that we think is favorable with a high safety, he's going to do all of those things, and he's going to do them at a really high level.
A player like this, we kind of got into it, 6'4", 210, big bodied, catch radius, body control, ball skills, all of that, right? You can kind of get a picture of this type of player, but my favorite moments in watching McMillan were the whip routes, the 2 whip routes that he won for touchdowns, one against USC, one against Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really important to see on tape because that's what I was looking for. I was like, all right, some of this stuff's kind of easy to figure out who this player is. Like, can he give me quick separation? And those 2 red zone reps against Washington and USC, where he got a ton of separation in the red zone. I thought that spoke volumes to the overall profile here. And not to mention, despite the profile, he's got some yak ability, man. Like, he's decisive with the ball in his hands. He gets it going.
I think it's 6 yards after catch.
Excellent.
Per catch average for him as across his 3 seasons of play.
That's really strong. Yeah. And it was kind of fun to do some reading on him in advance of this podcast and realize some of the things that he's been working on. He's working on the explosiveness. They've got him from 19.8 to 21.8 miles an hour on the gun since he's been in Arizona. He's talked about, hey, you might think I have a great vertical jump. I don't. He's like, it's kind of low 30s, and I'm working on that. And I think you can kind of sense that, like, it shows up with where I think his game has evolved to this point. And I'm excited that he's identified those areas because he's already really dynamic in terms of ability to separate above the rim, right? He's got a catch radius and ball skills there. He's already dynamic in terms of his ability to win after the catch, but he sprinkles in a little bit more explosiveness and a little bit more leaping ability. He's going to take his game to another level, and he's already a really good prospect.
Yeah, so I think there is room for growth, like you said. I want to invoke 2 names that are.
Well, I have 2 written down as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the overlap here is, if there is any. I kind of think that we will. But you think about players that have kind of gone in the stratosphere of where you are projecting McMillan as a prospect, which is top half of the first round. Players with body types like this: Drake London, USC, and Mike Evans, Texas A&M.
I have Drake London. Mike Evans, he's like 230 pounds. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is I just felt like he's just got an even another level to that body type. I get it. Like, I definitely get it. But I was like, man, I don't think he's that big.
So I guess for me, I agree he's not that big. But you watch the ability to track the ball, and Mike was really good in contested situations, but Mike also had like a drop rate that was exponentially higher than McMillan. And I see McMillan stacking guys and winning down the field in a lot of the same way. I think he's an elite, like, ball skills, track the ball kind of player. So maybe he's not the true power player, but I see him run through a lot of contact.
Yeah.
And still win and stack.
The other name I had down in addition to Drake London he's not a top half of the first round player, but it's T. Higgins. And really the T. Higgins that we've seen, not necessarily at Clemson, but the one that he's been in the NFL, I thought there were some parallels, body type and how they win as well.
Yeah. So I think that paints a very good border for expectations for McMillan as a wide receiver prospect who they got good vibes down there in Arizona, man. They got a number of really good players on that roster between him, Tetairoa Davis at cornerback, who was in the portal when Jed Fish left and then withdrew from the portal. They got an offensive tackle who's really interesting after, oh, by the way, Jordan Morgan this past year left and was drafted in the first round. So the vibes are high with the Arizona Wildcats, and McMillan's kind of the central piece of that for them. I can't wait to see what the rest of this year looks like for him after he dropped 10 for 304 touchdowns and was a yard short of a fifth touchdown in the third quarter as well.
You could check the tape. We didn't necessarily expect Ashton Jeanty and T-Mac to go off in week one like they did, but last week you picked these two players, right? So like the timing couldn't have been better. Yeah. No pressure, Kyle Crabbs, but your players for next week, we have high expectations for them.
We'll pick them off the cuff again.
All right.
At the end of today's show.
All right.
And I promise I'm not going to do any. I'm just going to pull up my sheet and I'm going to scroll and look at names. So.
All right. So the other hot name, Ashton Jeanty, Boise State running back. We're talking about him on the other side of it, folks. We'll be right back. Be sure to stick with us. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we got a little something different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, so Ashton Jeanty, 5'90", 5'9", 250-pound running back from Boise State. Those are his on-the-roster measurables, and this was a guy who went off for almost 300 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns in Boise State's first game of the season. But I think there's a lot more to him than just the rushing production, which is why he was somebody that I kind of want to get into at this position. Spoiler alert. I guess it's not a spoiler alert. I did my mock draft at the beginning of the week, and I had him going in the first round to Dallas. And Jeanty's a player who has a lot of production in ways, and I'd be curious, Joe, when you watched him, what was the biggest thing that stood out to you about what he profiles as a player?
These running backs like Jeanty, these are the ones that I really like, man. 5'9", 215. I love that dense build, the low center of gravity, and what that means for contact balance and your ability to be balanced through moves. And so my favorite thing about Jeanty is, I mean, he's got really outstanding contact balance, but he's not just a guy that can play right through you. He has make you miss skill as well. And I think that's what really spoke to me was how he addresses contact, whether it's being able to sustain himself, like very much unfazed with your tackle attempts around his, guys are falling off his thighs and his ankles all the time. But he blends that with, all right, I can put you in a blender as well. Mm-hmm. And man, I love his tracks with the ball as well. Like I really, really like the way that he stays square and how he gets downhill. He's a player that you want to profile him a certain way to be this like hammer between the tackles, and I certainly think he can be. But how he's able to work laterally, but also north-south at the same time and pick his spots and get downhill, I think that's what really makes him such an appealing player when you blend that with, okay, I like the decision makings. I like your tracks with the ball. I love your contact balance. You make people miss. Like, there's a lot to like in this package.
So you mentioned contact balance. I love the backs. If you profile over 210 and you're under 5'10", like I love short kings at running back, right? So it just gives you a certain center of gravity and it gives you certain density as what you are as a player that Jeanty has. I have a stat for you. For his career across 396 carries, what do you think Ashton Jeanty's yards per carry after contact is?
Oh, I'm sure it's pushing 4, high 3s.
4.5.
Yeah, that's crazy good.
Just an astronomically high number of yards after contact per rush across 2+ seasons now as a volume ball carrier. The ball security is good. His fumble rate, it's 99 carries per fumble thus far. So you're not really super concerned about ball security either. And then there's the passing game stuff. I think he shows a really good appetite for pass protection, but he's been involved in the passing game with getting manufactured touches. Are you going to put him in the slot and have him run a bunch of routes? No. But like realistically, that's like caring about the flavor of the icing that the happy birthday is written on your birthday cake on instead of like stuff that actually matters. Does that make sense? It's like, it's such a small part of the profile that I don't care because he shows good hands. You can get him checkdowns underneath. He can play on passing downs in general because he has an appetite for pass protection. So you're looking at, I think, authentically a true 3-down player at the position.
I thought he showcased a good amount of skill in the passing game with his hands, but also some routes. Right, you saw him running arrow routes down the field. You saw him running some wheels as well, which I think is important. I don't know that he's going to be like Christian McCaffrey as a receiving threat,
right?
But I think he more than holds his own. I don't find him to be deficient in that capacity. And Boise lined him up in the slot a decent amount as well. I think it was 10-11% of the time he got a chance to go to run some routes in that area as well. So again, I feel like he's going to bring some value in that capacity as well. Now, Kyle, you mentioned
he's got a 90% reception per target rate for his career, as you said. And it's not like he's got 61 receptions in 27 games.
I would agree with you on overall for his career. He hasn't had a fumbling problem, but last year he kind of did, right? Like he had 5 fumbles last season. It was 1 in every 52 attempts. And now he was very good in 2022, only 1 fumble all season long. So hopefully 2023 was more of a blip in the radar because obviously he didn't fumble in week 1, but also in 2022, he seemed to take care of the ball quite well.
Well, and to be fair, 2 of his 5 fumbles for his career, or 2 of his 6 fumbles for his career, were in the passing game. So from a carry perspective, I thought it was a little bit more consistent.
One of the things that I'm excited about for Jeanty is this game this weekend, right? I think you watch this guy play, and I mean, he's mowing through Colorado State and Wyoming and these Mountain West type schools.
We will.
Okay.
Patrick Surtain has agreed to terms on a 4-year extension with the Denver Broncos. $96 million, $24 million per season. It's about
healthy.
$2.5-3 million reset of the market.
That's big deal.
Yeah.
Sauce Gardner says, "I'll see you next offseason."
We're talking about the Broncos. We had to talk about the other Bronco.
Right. No, I get it. That is major news as we are talking about Ashton Jeanty in a big signature game, right? Like,
yeah,
again, mowing through these Colorado States, these Wyomings. And I thought he was good against, he played Washington and UCLA last year. He was fine in those games. Oregon on Saturday, right? That's going to be his only game this year, I feel like, is against like a major school this year. Big one, in my opinion, for him to like validate that I can mow through anybody, not just these guys from smaller schools.
Well, I think that's where I go back to from a rushing profile perspective. He averages less than 1 3/4 yards per contact or yards before contact per rush.
Mm-hmm.
And the yards after contact is more than 2x that. So just show that you can continue to create yardage as a player, because that's one of the ones where I don't know that I don't expect Boise to line up and have a lot of success creating gaps for Ashton Jeanty, but there's going to be times where you get to the NFL and your line's not going to win the matchups.
Right.
So you creating the yardage, even if it's not a monster day for Jeanty, what do you do to create added yardage? Because that's one of the things that's such a hallmark piece of his game and his profile as a prospect that has me in the stratosphere where it's like, I do think you're a player who, for a team that desperately needs a running back, or that's going to be a part of the identity of who you are as a football team, if you're in the outside the top 20 and you want to have that conversation, and there's a whole positional value thing that I get, and I think that's not really the point of today, but like it can put you in that conversation if you show you have inherent value for what you can create with consistency on your own, because that's the big blowback that comes in running backs is, well, you're so dependent on the other 10 guys on the field.
On Bruce Feldman's freaks list is Ashton Jeanty, saying that he got 22 miles an hour on the gun, 340-pound power clean. That's a lot. 605-pound squat, and allegedly he could do more. The strength staff said you're not putting any more weight. That's it. That you don't need to put any more weight at the bar. We get it. You got strength in your lowers.
What was that avid saying that we were told those years ago? Sometimes you want to be willing to tell a guy whoa there instead of have to tell him to sick him.
Yeah.
Right. I think this is one of those guys.
That's what you want from
you don't have to light the fire underneath a guy like this.
Yeah. All right, folks. James Pearce, pass rusher, Tennessee. We're talking all about him on the other side of it. Be sure to stick with us. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
All right, so we are going with Tennessee pass rusher James Pearce as our third player today. Pearce, 10 snaps for Tennessee in their dress rehearsal for the season, I guess is probably a good way to put it. I mean, they cakewalked on Saturday. And a lot of their players, it was very quick cameo appearances for them throughout that game. So,
you want to say that quarterback's name real quick, Kyle? Or?
No, I'm not prepared to do it. I'm going to learn it because that dudes can throw the ball. But I'm going to need a little extra time to make sure that I do the right first impression on the podcast in the same way that we did with T-Mac today. So, James Pearce, double-digit sacks last season. If you like guys with explosive first steps, with a lot of bend and good length,
who doesn't like that?
Corner. Everybody on the internet seems to love it a little bit more than the league does, which is why I think this is an interesting player to talk about a little bit.
Right.
You're going to like James Pearce. This is very Brian Burnsy for me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's burst bend, right? That's what you're getting. There's reports that he runs in the 4.4s. He hit 23 miles an hour on his pick six against Iowa on the radar gun. So he's very, very explosive. And I think my favorite thing about that explosiveness, when you think about it, like, okay, we can win around the near hip and win around the outside arc of the offensive tackles. But buddy, this guy's got an inside counter, man.
Yeah.
He's got a really good inside counter. And he's got some really good speed to power conversion as well. I mean, I'll tell you what, this right tackle for Virginia last year, buddy, he's still having nightmares about James Pearce. That was a tough go.
Yeah.
That was a tough go for that young man. But I think that's what I like so much about Pearce is, like, he's a legitimate, that ability to threaten inside and outside puts these tackles in a spot where you could just tell they're a little antsy having to try to set against him, because he could take that B gap if he wants it. And I think that matters a ton. And I'm pretty impressed with his ability to, like, really just reduce sometimes and just like, hey, I'm going to run past you and I'm going to be able to dip that shoulder. You're not going to get hands on me. And so that, plus that ability to come inside and cross face and win, makes him really, really dynamic off the edge.
Yeah. I think the challenge here is this is a player who, while he has an inside counter, I don't think he has a lot of power elements to his game yet. You see him try to stab the hand into the center of the chest and compress the offensive tackle. And usually when he gets off of those blocks, it's because he converts to something else.
Yeah.
I will say Tennessee did a lot of stemming before the snap with him, which I was really impressed with, as far as getting him in a spot. And then you have a communication with your guard as the tackle, and you look back and he's in a different spot than he was right before you looked over, and how they force you to do a lot of work before the snap to keep tabs on him to make sure that you're pushing in the right way of where he can come from. He's walked out as like an apex defender a few times, and he's crashing off the edge. And if they do a shift or a motion, like he'll carry like he's going over there, and then he'll still come. He just comes from the other side. So he hits you from a lot of different angles. He's got good first step with his hand in the dirt. He's got good first step out of a 2-point stance when he's releasing from a little bit of depth. Very active with the hands as he's running the loop on the outside.
Yeah.
But as you just look at his profile as a player, and you know how teams are going to ask questions and poke holes, and there's a success and failure rate that happens in the league with guys that it's not plug and play with. Well, there's successes and failures in every element with every kind of player, but I think there's a little bit more incurred risk if you're going to be stubborn about, we want you to do this, you're going to do this, and we're not going to cater your role to your physical attributes to put you in best positions to be successful. Does that make sense?
No, I hear what you're saying. No, this is
6'5", 240-pound edge guy.
Yeah.
Don't put him in tight alignments, or don't put him in the formational strength and ask him to play first down and stack the point of attack.
Right.
Or play the run.
Yeah. We've had these conversations through the years, whether it's about a Brian Burns or even maybe to an extent Dallas Turner last year. And I know this is going to, they don't necessarily always go as high as you think they're going to. Even Micah Parsons, right? Like it wasn't the draft was redone, he's a top 3 pick, right? And he wasn't that. So I totally get that. And I think you can apply a lot of that to some of these safety type players, right? Like Nichols and stuff like that, where you're just, it's like, man, this guy's a baller and he can really help a football team. But
he's going to go 35th over on the draft.
Right. 100%. So I get that. You think I felt like what I was trying to watch for when I was watching James Pearce was like, were these tackles trying to get hands on quick? You know what I mean? Because like that's the thing, it's hard to vertical set with this guy because he has that 2-way opportunity. But like when you try to get hands quick on him and you give him a soft edge and he can take it, it's over. It's over.
And he killed soft edges. So I do think he's somebody that you want to set aggressively, but he has the hand activity where he'll make you pay if you're not patient when you get out there. So it's like, Mason Johnson, tackle for Clemson, we did some work with at our previous stop, talks about taking the air out of the rush. Right. Mm-hmm. And you want to close that space. Tron Armstead talks about that a lot too, with all the work that he does with O-line masterminds and mentoring young offensive linemen. And I think Teron's the picturesque, a lot easier said than done. Oh, just do it like Tron Armstead does. Right.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Teron's like, I want to get out there and I want to close that angle down, but then I'm going to be super patient with my hands and trust my athleticism once I'm out there.
Right. Rare.
And that's really rare, but that's almost the book you have to play with Pearce is, if you come at him and you don't get hands on, or you're reckless with your center of gravity as you're aggressively taking that space out, he does have the hand usage. He's going to kill you. Mm-hmm. And if you just kind of sit back and you're like, oh, I'm going to come to me and I'm going to take depth and try and soft catch him, like you said, he can come back across your face and beat you across your face. Or if you're too slow out of your stance, he's just going to run right around. I thought this stat was interesting. His pressure rate on first and second down is about 17.5%, 18%. That's a really good number. His pressure rate on third down is almost 30.
Jeez. I was wondering what was going to happen with that. And boy.
So if you want to know what the immediate role is for maybe a little undersized pass rusher coming in, you draft a kid like this. At a minimum, if you're in 3rd and 6+, he's on the field. Go get the quarterback.
If Jim Schwartz gets his hands on this guy,
stop.
Right.
Put him in a wide 9 all the time and just can encourage him to use that explosiveness and go get it.
Yep. Yikes. You think Agbanya Karanku could be productive in that scheme?
Let me see.
I think Jerry Hughes can be productive with Jim Schwartz. What do you see this guy?
So that's okay. That's interesting. I went to look at Chop Robinson because that's kind of the book on Chop was like run stuff is kind of hit or miss. I wanted to know what that pressure profile looked like. Chop was 15% on first down, 20% on second down, and 20% on third down. So James Pearce, the third down pass rush profile is about an extra 8%, and he's playing in the SEC.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Who are the guys, Kyle? You got the players for next week?
Let's see. Let's do Luther Burden, the third, wide receiver, Missouri. It's kind of him and T-Mac as the two top guys. Let's do Benjamin Morrison, cornerback, Notre Dame. And then I want you to pick a position for the last one.
I'm going to pick a defensive lineman.
You want a defensive lineman?
Yeah.
There's about 1 billion of them in my top 50.
Just give me one of them.
Let's do – I don't want to do Kenneth Grant yet because we just did Michigan last week. Kenneth Grant on the Feldman's Freaks list as well. Just a freakish 330-pound guy. How about Deion Walker, nose tackle, Kentucky?
Love it.
Okay.
Got it written down, Kyle Crabbs.
Great. So we're on the books. We'll see what we'll see if any of those guys break out with 5 sack performances or 3 interception performances, and we can keep the good juju going from last week with these players. So that's going to do it for us here on Locked On NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. We are back tomorrow to prep you for the start of the 2024 season. Joe's
I'm excited, man.
Me too.
I know, dude.
We'll make all our picks against the spread with our roster power rankings, all that. That's coming your way tomorrow. Make sure you keep it locked in here on the Locked On Network. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you list your favorite podcast. Make it a good one. We are out of here.